There once was a law that was put into place to end drinking. Imagine that. You can't go out with the boys on a Saturday night, and you know what happened? Drinking rose at astronomical rates. Yeah, the boys didn't take that one well. This is History Goes Wrong, and this is the story about the Prohibition. In the late 19th century, there was a movement that framed alcohol as the root cause of poverty, domestic issues, yeah, we'll call it issues because, algorithm, and industry inefficiency. Not just a vice, a systematic threat. The Anti-Saloon League, one of the first modern, single-issued lobbying organizations in United States history, runs a decade-long, methodical campaign targeting state legislators before going federal. It's crazy how much you can accomplish with just enough money. In my opinion, the phrase 6-7 is the reason for poverty and crime in this country, and we must lobby to end it. I know we're all tired of it. You can't pass the kid in the grocery store without hearing it over and over. All jokes aside, the 18th Amendment passed in 1919, ratified by 46 of 48 states, the most lopsided constitutional vote in American history at that point. That's right, 46 out of 48. And here I am not even being able to get my wife to agree what we should eat for lunch. But the Volstead Act, the enforcement of law, contains explicit carve-outs. Alcohol for religious sacrament, alcohol for medicinal purposes, and farmers' rights to make non-intoxicating fruit juice at home. This gave some wiggle room on obtaining alcohol even though federally it was outlawed. Weirdly enough, the limit they put on that farmer juice was 200 gallons per year. That was the legal home fermentation limit per household, which is not like a small amount of fruit juice. The government had just banned alcohol while simultaneously handing out every household, every church, every doctor a signed permission slip. This law was structured like a house with steel doors and the highest quality locks, one that you just can't kick in. Only problem is the house has holes in the wall and the windows are left open so you can just come right in. You don't have to go through the door. They started selling wine bricks, which was just compressed grape concentrate with printed warning labels on exactly how not to accidentally make wine. Here's an example. Do not add water. Do not store in a warm place. Do not wait 21 days or oh no, it will ferment. It's the most instructional warning label in retail history. It's like selling a bank robber a mask and a brown money bag and putting a label on the kit. Definitely don't walk into a bank and do not tell them to put the money in the bag. Another consequence of these loopholes that they left in was medicinal whiskey. The prescriptions exploded. The number of licensed physicians writing alcohol prescriptions surged. In the Walgreens drugstore, yes, Walgreens, expanded from 20 locations to 525. This all happened in the Prohibition decade and was mostly because of the prescription liquor sales. Just a little cough, cough. Doc, I need some Jack Daniels for this headache of mine. It's funny to me that Walgreens turned into the hottest bar in town during this era. But religious exemptions created equal chaos. Jewish congregations and Catholic churches both require sacramental wine, so the number of registered rabbis and religious officials claiming wine permits spiked dramatically. People were just making up churches to get liquor, which, if you weigh that on the moral compass, is a little wild. The number of rabbis in New York seeking wine permits increased so sharply that authorities started to flag them as fraudulent. But here's the problem. The Volstead Act's enforcement budget is wildly insufficient for the scale of the task, and the Prohibition Bureau is chronically underfunded and understaffed. Imagine the sheer amount of resources this would actually take for a second. You would need to create a whole separate branch of the military just to keep the liquor law in motion. This bureau became one of the most corrupt federal agencies in U.S. history. Roughly 1 in 12 Prohibition agents is fired for bribery or corruption during this period. The other 11 got fired for drinking on the job. I'm obviously just joking, but imagine how many people joined this agency just to throw house parties for the boys. But into all this empty space left from enforcement, up steps organized crime. Everybody's heard of Al Capone. Al Capone's Chicago operation alone is estimated to gross $60 million per year at its peak. That's roughly $1 billion in today's money. This just so happens to be more than the government put as a budget for enforcing the law. Hey, sorry for the mid-roll. To say, if you're enjoying this content, would you please just think about leaving a comment, letting me know what I can improve on and how I can serve you guys better as a content creator. Right now, I'm just beginning and I really need to know what I'm doing wrong, what I'm doing right, and what you guys want to see out of me in the future. So comment something you would change or something you like about the way my videos are done. Also, if you could subscribe, leave a like, go watch any of my other videos, that would be a huge favor to me and the channel. Thank you for all the support so far, and I hope you stay around to watch the rest of my videos. Now, let's get back to the action. Bootlegging requires supply chains, distribution networks, corrupt officials, and the lawyers. Prohibition didn't eliminate the alcohol industry. It handed it to people that could solve the business disputes with car bombs. The speakeasies proliferated. New York City alone was estimated to have 30,000 to 100,000 illegal drinking establishments during this time. Here's the crazy part about that. Before the whole, don't drink law came into place, there was only 15,000 legal saloons. Okay, so think about that for a second. When you were a child, right? And you had no intent of playing with a toy until your friend took it and your parents were like, hey, I'll let them use it now. You weren't using it. And now you just it's a burning passion. I must do the thing that I can't have. That's what this reminds me of. All right, so here's where it gets worse. The industrial alcohol legally produced for manufacturing is required by the government to be denatured, aka poisoned, to prevent drinking. Bootleggers still redistilled it anyways, and the government knows people are dying from it. So far, if we're, taking tallies, A, it made people drink more, and B, it made it more dangerous to drink at the same time. An estimated 10,000 people died from drinking government-poisoned alcohol during the Prohibition. So, where we're sitting at right now is the federal government is actively poisoning its own citizens, and the law that they're trying to enforce is unenforceable. This was the peak of the problems. By the late 1920s, Prohibition enforcement is a public joke. Famous cases of agents raiding establishments while politicians drink openly. So the law is visibly applied to the poor and ignored for the wealthy. Yeah, you remember all those loopholes they wrote in? They're using these at full capacity right now. But in October 29, the stock market crashed. This is the Great Depression. And with the federal government's revenue collapsing, they were looking back in the books trying to figure out how they were making so much money before. There's an obvious gap here, we just can't quite put our fingers on it. Oh, that's weird. Alcohol taxes provided 30 to 40% of the federal revenue, and that money started talking. On a side note, 40% is crazy. Almost half of the federal revenue came from the night out with the boys, so the government started scheming on how to get that bread back. The repeal debate reframes entirely. The argument went from, hey, the prohibition's wrong, we want our booze back, to the government arguing, hey, we're kind of broke right now, so we need our money back. Then the 21st Amendment, repealing prohibition, is ratified in 1933, faster than almost any other amendment in US history. Something that is almost impossible to do to this day only took 9 months. It's because the Congress wanted their money back. The government didn't legalize drinking because it was right. It legalized drinking because it went broke. Let's go back to this organized crime infrastructure that was built during the Prohibition. What do you think happened? It didn't just go away. The networks, corruption pipelines, they just pivoted to gambling and narcotics and labor rackets. So basically the government created a whole crime ring with a bill that was meant to lower crime. So let's go back to this alcohol consumption thing. So yes, in big cities it spiked way higher than it had ever been because everybody could get to the speakeasies and that's where the mobs were at. But alcohol consumption as a whole did not return to prohibition levels immediately after repeal. That's the only thing the prohibition law actually achieved, which was to have less people drinking. Herbert Hoover named the prohibition the noble experiment, which is a hilarious way to polish a turd. I'm gonna start calling all my mistakes glorious experiments. Here's the legacy left behind. The Prohibition gives America organized crime at industrial scales, a culture of institutional corruption, a federal government that learned to poison its own people, and now a bar on every corner. It ends not in triumph or tragedy, but in a tax spreadsheet. The noble experiment ultimately ended because the government needed to close their bar tab. This has been History Goes Wrong, and if you stayed this long, you obviously liked the video, so just go ahead and like, comment, subscribe, do all the things, and follow me to see more of history's biggest fails. Also, if there's a video floating in the right top hand corner of your screen, that means that YouTube thinks you would love that video. So go ahead and click it, and I'll see you there.